headed only by a few companies that we are seeing.
Hello and welcome. You have tuned into the Motown Show right here on ET Now. I'm Shrishti Sharma, wherein in this particular show we tell you all the latest that is happening within the Indian automobile space. So let's get started and let's have a look at the key headlines of the week gone by. First up is the April auto sales data that have delivered a strong start to FY27, with passenger vehicles and two-wheelers both clocking robust double-digit growth. PV volumes rose 26%, while two-wheelers grew 27% YOY. Tractor sales surprised positively with a 22% jump, and EV penetration is clearly rising, with passenger vehicle EV share climbing to 5.5% and two-wheelers to nearly 8%. However, rising commodity costs and potential fuel price hikes could push automakers to control the prices increase going forward. And Jaguar Land Rover India has cut the prices of its flagship imported models for up to 75 lakhs, anticipating benefits from the India-UK Free Trade Agreement. The Range Rover SV now starts at 3.5 crores, down from 4.25 crores, while the Range Rover Sport SV is priced at 2.35 crores. The move is aimed at boosting the demand and expanding access to its luxury portfolio, while locally manufactured models remain unaffected. And Ather Energy is gearing up for its next growth phase with a new low-cost electric scooter platform. The upcoming EL platform will shift to steel frames and simpler systems, reducing the dependence on expensive materials like aluminium and copper. The company plans to launch a mass-market scooter priced between 1 to 1.25 lakhs by October 2026, a move expected to significantly improve the margins and expand its consumer base. And North America's Class 8 truck orders saw a 34% month-on-month decline in April to 25,500 units, reflecting seasonal moderation after a strong March. However, on the yearly basis, orders surged a massive 199%, marking the third consecutive month of over 140% growth. The sharp yearly jump is largely due to the low base, but underlying demand trends remain resilient. And competition in India's passenger vehicle market is intensifying, with Tata Motors and Mahindra gaining the ground over Hyundai in calendar year 2026. Now, both homegrown automakers are strengthening their portfolios and maintaining strong momentum, especially in SUVs and EVs, wherein Hyundai, meanwhile, is facing increasing pressure to defend its market share amid the aggressive push from domestic rivals. All right, viewers, let's move on, and it's time to get you the big global story of the week. And the global auto industry is once again at the center of the crucial shift, and it is all come down to a familiar debate, that is oil versus electric. Now, over the past few weeks, crude oil prices have surged sharply amid the rising geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, and as a result, fuel costs are climbing once again, putting pressure on consumers and making traditional petrol and diesel vehicles more expensive to run. And that's where electric vehicles are beginning to stand out even more clearly. Now, because when you look at the economies wherein EVs can offer up to 60 to 70% lower running cost, and that is starting to shift the total cost of ownership decisively in favor of the electric. But this is not just about cost anymore. The shift is already visible in global sales trend, because electric vehicle sales have been growing at a significantly faster pace than the broader auto market. Now, after rising over 50% in 2022, growth remains strong at 35% in 2023 and 25% in 2024. But meanwhile, traditional ICE vehicles growth continues to remain muted at low single digit. Now, today, nearly 1 in every 4 cars sold globally is electric. That's a remarkable jump from just a few years ago. And the impact is now going beyond the auto sector. Electric vehicles are already displacing close to 1 million barrels of oil demand every single day, marking a structural shift in how energy is consumed globally. However, the transition is not without its challenges, because 2026 is shaping up to be a more nuanced year for EV adoption. While some markets like the United States are seeing a slowdown due to subsidy cuts and affordability concerns, others, particularly in Europe, continue to show strong momentum. But issues like high upfront cost, policy uncertainty, and charging infrastructure remain key hurdles. But despite these challenges, the direction of the industry remains clear. That is, global automakers are not stepping back. They are adapting, because Renault is already talking about a seismic shift in the demand as fuel volatility pushes consumers towards EVs. Tesla is focusing on affordability to drive volumes, while BYD continues to expand aggressively in global markets. Now, even legacy players like BMW and Volkswagen are doubling down on scale and cost efficiency to make EVs more accessible. So the message is simple. Higher oil prices may be the trigger, but the shift towards electric vehicle is being driven by deeper structural challenges, economies, scale, and global demand. And that's what makes this transition far more durable this time around. And now on to the Motown Show. It's time to connect with the management. And today we're going to be talking with the management of a company that has been solidifying their position in the niche electric motorcycles market in India. And I'm talking about Oben Electric, who is not just in the process of improving their numbers on a month-on-month basis. They have expansion plans and the company is launching new products. So let's understand more on all of these details. And we are being joined by Madhumita Agrawal, who's the founder and CEO of Oben Electric, on the show. Hi Madhumita, so good having you on the channel today, and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, let's start with the industry, Madhumita, because when we talk about the electric vehicle space in the two-wheeler side, it has largely been led by the scooter segment. Help us understand what makes you so bullish on the electric motorcycle market, and going ahead, how do you see the industry shaping and what role will Oben play in that?
When we started, in 2020, when we looked around that, what are the data points talking about, right? Because when you start a business, it is more about certain facts, certain data points that drive certain calculations, right? So when we looked around, all of, the industry started with scooters, right? And there were players in EV, the transition was happening mostly in the scooter space. But the very, very important, kind of a paradox, which we keep saying, was that we are in a world's largest motorcycle market. And the consumer is kind of very much used to riding motorcycles and rides motorcycles for their primary, day-to-day commute. And there was a huge gap which we could see, that we are in a motorcycle market where India is not just from a consumer point of view that largest market, but a manufacturer and also exporter. But there are no electric motorcycle. And that was the problem at hand to kind of solve, and a huge, huge gap. And also it's a huge opportunity. And looking at the numbers, right, we are talking about some, 1.3 crores kind of volume of ICE motorcycles selling. And in that, you see the data says that 90% of whatever market is below 1,50,000 rupees. So the problem was to build something for this consumer. Price bracket is a very important thing, below 1,50,000. And there are no electric motorcycle. So I think for us, that was a problem statement to solve, and that was a business opportunity.
But Madhumita, let's talk about your strategy, because you have been launching newer products, but just wanted to understand that yours is a premium niche play, or it's the mass market strategy that you want to adopt?
So if you look at the motorcycle market in India is itself divided into 4 segments, right? One segment, which is 10% of the market, is like above 1,50,000 rupees. Then comes everything below 1,50,000. That itself is segmented into, 4 categories, like 1,50,000, which you can say a premium mass commuter. Then you have a mid segment, which is like your 1,20,000-25,000. And then you have a segment which is below 1 lakh. In that also you have 2 segments, like, 80,000 and 1 lakh. So I think our positioning from day one has been in the premium commuter, and then now we have brought a product which is your Roar Evo, which is more in the mid segment, right? Commuter, but definitely having the aspirational design, and other functionality and performance. So our focus is to kind of get into all these segment, which is very much defined. I don't need to define that segment. This is defined since ages. There are leaders in this segment in the IC, and there is a set consumer. So we will focus on meeting the expectation of this consumer.
But Madhumita, you are undertaking newer launches as well, and in the latest, I believe that it's the Roar Evo that has been launched. Very aggressive pricing that you have set for this particular motorcycle. So help us understand, what gap are you trying to fill in the market with this particular product?
So, when in the market, if you see either there is a compromised product with on specification, or first of all, there is very minimal competition. We are talking about a very huge market, right? And very, very minimal, you will see players. Yet the motorcycle segment is warming up, right? So we looked at that there is a consumer who is definitely looking for aspirational design, because that's a very big factor to decide on a product. And he's also looking at performance and usability, because it's a day-to-day commute ride which he uses the vehicle for. So I think this is a product where the intersection of design, performance, and usability, that is functionality, all the features, if you see the consumer centric features, whether it is storage, whether it is kind of any safety features or something, fall alert or anything, these are very much focused on that usability and day to day requirement of a consumer. So my consumer is very, very fixed, that who uses for a daily commute, which is an aspirational Bharat consumer, and also looking at something, on the performance side as well.
Madhumita, if you can help us understand that, how has been the initial response so far? I know it's a little too early to ask this question, but on ground, how do you think that the customers are taking this one?
So I think the response has been fantastic. We are super excited. The media has given us a lot of love, and I think the product as a whole, right, has been appreciated a lot. And I think that is a very big, kind of appreciation that we have got from media. And yes, bookings are open. Definitely, the bookings are shooting up. So that's something we are seeing on a much, much positive side. Things are moving.
Well, Mamita, I had one question with respect to your battery technology, because I believe that yours is the LFP battery technology, while some of your peers are sticking to NMC. Give us some understanding, what's the rationale behind it, and in the long run, how do you think that this technology will give you the competitive edge?
So if you look at LFP, right, it's a car cell chemistry or car technology worldwide. All the cars globally use the LFP cell chemistry, right? So here again, data points. I would say it was all scientific data, facts, and everything based on which our R&D has based this product. So the data point, if you look at, these are scientific, points, that LFP are known for double the cycle. They are known for safety, which is like the most, important, part in a EVs. And then, of course, they are much more, cleaner. So these are certain aspects that LFP brings, which are benefit for consumers as well as from a business point of view also. Because LFP are known for being a robust chemistry. But the problem for us was, how do you integrate in a two-wheeler and in a complex machine like motorcycle? I think that is what we have cracked, and we have been the first one to kind of, pioneer LFP in two-wheelers, which is, I think, all kudos to, my R&D team, which have done a, tremendous good job, and a tough problem they have cracked. So for us, that's the biggest edge, because what it is solving is the consumer's concern of range, that is cycles, life of a battery, which is a concern of consumer. Safety is a bigger concern, and then of course LFP with its all these inherent properties also becomes very cost effective, right, compared to any other chemistry. So these are all consumer centric aspects which plays a very strong role in a decision making of a EV vehicle market on that. Yeah.
But also, we do understand that you're in the process of raising some newer funds. It's close to 300 crores that you plan to raise in the near term. Help us understand what are the plans to utilize this one? Is it going to be product development, network expansion to improve unit economics? What exactly is on cards?
Yeah. So today, if you see, when I'm talking to you, we are already COGS break even, right? So that's a very big milestone, which already the company is at. And that's something, as a, company or as a founder, that has been our focus to build a sustainable business. Now, moving forward, this year we have our scale up plan, right? We are looking at 350 plus stores ramp up. We are looking at new segments to add, bringing new products in the different segments, and then also kind of having a establishing ourselves as a trustworthy brand that is entirely focusing on the service network, right? So these are certain major areas where the funds will be deployed, and definitely our consumers will get to hear more about new products, innovations, a lot of IPs and technology coming to them.
But when we look at the industry, see, I do understand that the electric motorcycle as a percentage of whole may be very minuscule at this point in time, but there are newer players entering, and that clearly shows that there is interest in the market and they are trying to cater to that. You have players like Ola, Revolt that have already been present in this particular market. So help us understand, what makes Oben a differentiating candidate amongst this space, and why should consumers go with you?
So I think, Srishi, you have already answered it. So a motorcycle buyer is a very, very fixed, he's not choosing between motorcycle and scooter. He's very much, if I say today's data and numbers says that, it's kind of India rides on motorcycle, right? Our Vahan data or the kind of sales, motorcycle sales happen. So it's very evident that, this rider is looking for motorcycle. And definitely motorcycles have been there because of their form factor, the comfort to ride and the kind of infrastructure we have. It really supports a rider much better, and also consumer behavior, right? Consumer behavior to riding motorcycles has a different aspiration than a scooter. So I think these are very kind of points which doesn't change overnight. It's a kind of generation it will take to kind of really, really change a consumer behavior, right? From motorcycle to scooter. So that's a very, very, focused on consumer behavior, that why they want to, why they are not choosing between, motorcycle and scooter.
But lastly, I had one question on subsidies, because there is an incentive push when it comes to the subsidies. So once these subsidies fade away, help us understand, how do you believe that your unit economics will be impacted if, say, in the couple of years more from now, there are no subsidies? Then how will you tackle that situation? What's the plan B?
So I think it's a very good question. I think even the market has played out in that way. If you see, initially any industry starts, it requires external, push from the government, some policies and subsidies. And, there are products which are just off the shelf, and that's how the industry picks. But eventually, in the long run, there are only technology product stays which has a very strong R&D. Okay. So R&D not only just helps in good product, it also helps in getting better margins. So I think when you do R&D and vertical integration, that all the critical components and everything, if you are making yourself, you have a better margin there compared to, getting it done from vendor, and, that margin is shared with the vendor. So I think the real question is, at this time when India is having that kind of awareness, and there is a transition, enough good transition we have seen in the EV sector, of course, in the scooter. Businesses who will be driven by vertical integration, by technology, having a control on technology, those are the businesses who will eventually be sustainable and which will also have better margins. And that is the way OEMs have to drive it. Subsidies are like just Kickstarter, you can say, to get that industry roll on. But eventually, when economies of scale come, benefits will come. When there is technology evolution, a maturity of technology, benefits will come, which will be eventually passed on to the consumer.
And it's now time to drive. And today we have something very interesting. A car that is not too subtle, not too aggressive, but sits perfectly in between. And I'm talking about Audi SQ8, a car that actually is in the middle ground between our SQ8 and Q8. But the big question is this the sweet spot? Let's find out. So the SQ8 sits right in the middle in pricing, in performance, and even in character, because coming at around close to 1.7 crores in India, this car actually undercuts the RSQ8. But don't let that fool you, because underneath this car is a lot closer to the RSQ8, and you will find out that. And that's because the heart of this SUV is a proper monster, a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 pushing over 500 of horsepower and 770 Nm of torque. 0 to 100 in just about 4 seconds, which for something this big is seriously quick. And what stands out is not just the speed, it's how effortlessly it delivers it. Now in comfort mode, it's calm, composed, almost like a luxury cruiser. But switch to dynamics and this transforms completely. The steering sharpens, the throttle responds instantly, and suddenly this 2.2-ton SUV feels unbelievably agile. And then there's design. It doesn't scream for attention, but it definitely has presence. Those massive grills, sharp LEDs, and a sporty stance, and those quad exhausts at the rear, that's your biggest giveaway. Step inside and it's classic Audi. Clean, premium, and very well put together. Now, sporty touches like the flat bottom steering, red seats, and driver-focused cockpit add character. You'll get all essentials: digital cockpit, dual screens, premium sound systems, but more importantly, it remains comfortable enough for everyday use. So if the RSQ8 feels a bit too loud and Q8 feels a bit too mild, then this might be just the perfect balance. A performance SUV that doesn't shout but definitely delivers, and that's what makes Audi SQ8 a bit of a hidden gem.